Okay. I apologize. I just need to confirm that we are live here. And yes, it looks like we are on Facebook now. Hello, everybody. We are streaming from Zoom. Thank you so much for your patience. It took us a bit here. I was having a little bit of technical difficulties, but we are happy to be on now. And I will start by saying my name is Mavil Agajanian. I am the Executive Director for the Montrose Verdugo City Chamber of Commerce, and we are thrilled to have everyone join us today in this Chamber Chat, Small Town Big Dreams with Congressman Adam Schiff. And without further ado, I would like to introduce our 28th Congressional District's representative, Congressman Adam Schiff. Thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you to your team for helping us coordinate this. First, I would like to congratulate you on your 11th term. Normally, I know around this time of year, we have our yearly Christmas parade here in Montrose, and unfortunately, as you may know, we cannot host it this year. And so while that is sad news, we are very excited to still be able to have you here with us during the holiday season and answering some questions for us. This pandemic has certainly brought a lot of questions, and I know that a lot of people are seeking answers. So I appreciate you joining us here, Congressman Adam Schiff. How are you doing today?
I'm good, and it's a pleasure to join you. I will miss that Christmas parade. I think it's the first time that I will not be part of that parade in more than 20 years. It's really
wow.
One of the wonderful highlights of the year for me, to see Santa come flying by in a helicopter,
yes.
and just to see the whole town turn out. It's a wonderful event, but you know, I'm confident next year we'll be through this and life can go back to normal.
Yes, I hope so. I think that's what we're all hoping for.
Part of that parade in more than 20 years.
I'm sorry, I'm having a little feedback here. Just give me 1 second. Thank you. Yes, we are hoping that things will resume back to normal in 2021, hopefully sooner than later, so that we can have events like those that we all look forward to. I definitely will miss Santa this year in that helicopter. It's one of the most exciting things we look forward to all year. But I'm going to go ahead and jump into some of these questions that have come in, if you don't mind. We are a little bit of a time crunch, so I want to go ahead and get those in before we can't. So I'm going to go ahead and start here with this one that I got earlier this week. So with so much that has happened this year, can you start by giving us some of your 2020 highlights and your latest updates?
Well, I think for all of us, it's a very short list of 2020 highlights in terms of life as usual, that is. Legislatively, you know, I think I would point to a couple things. First, it became very apparent to me early in the pandemic that a lot of my constituents, and in fact, millions of people across the country, were going to be left out of unemployment compensation altogether because they didn't have traditional work. They were freelancers and contract workers and gig workers, and they would go from project to project, and that's not typically covered by unemployment compensation. So I worked hard to organize an effort in the House to include in the first relief package an expansion of unemployment compensation to include these contract workers, these independent contractors. And we were successful, and it was included. And I think that brought some measure of help to millions of people and a lot of my constituents, in particular those in the entertainment industry, but those really with any non-traditional work. So I'm very proud of that accomplishment. I have been working since actually to expand on that. There's a subset of people who are mixed income earners. That is, they have some traditional W-2 income, but they also do a lot of independent contracting work. And by virtue of how the states calculate unemployment, many of them are getting far less than they should have or nothing at all. So I have a fix that is in the most recent COVID relief bill that would provide additional assistance to those mixed income earners. I'm also, frankly proud of the work that I've done with some of the volunteer organizations in our district, just frankly being there to help out at the LA Unified School District grab and go sites, providing meals to people that are going hungry otherwise, helping to raise money for these nonprofits like Project Angel Food and the LA Regional Food Bank. So it's been wonderful to see my constituents, coming together to help each other out and recognize that, we're all in this together. And so those are, I guess, some of the highlights of a year that for most don't have too many highlights.
Yes, I realize that there probably wouldn't be too many, but I would say those are some great accomplishments. So we thank you for that. And I know that we received a lot from even just hair salon owners and their employees. They were struggling at first, and it did get corrected. And so we appreciate that. It really did help everyone out. Thank you for that. And I want to move on, if you don't mind, to our next question. With the LA County Health Officer Order recently being modified to align with the governor's stay-at-home order for the Southern California region, many small business owners, like those of hair salons, breweries, and restaurants who have had to shut down their operations or have further restrictions again, are worried about the future of their establishments. There have been grants and loans available to them, but what are, if any, some other helpful advice or resource outlets you can offer them?
Well, first of all, I want to thank the Chamber for the vital role that you play always, but have played during this pandemic, and being a clearinghouse for information about how your members can get through this incredibly difficult and challenging time. What we've been doing in my office have been guiding businesses through the process of applying for PPP funds through the SBA, as well as applying for emergency disaster economic relief assistance. And those are the two primary vehicles that Congress established in some of the early COVID relief legislation to help small businesses. There's a Main Street lending facility, which is designed to help more middle-sized businesses. And frankly, it's been very slow and I think not very effective. And then there's a large industry fund, which has been helpful for some of the big industries like the airline industry. But small businesses have really been reliant on the PPP program, which is now out of funds.
Yes.
And so what I've been doing is working to try to replenish those funds, as well as help those that have not applied for the emergency disaster relief loans or grants, a separate pool of funding. And I think that we are very close, knock on wood, to a follow-on relief package. I'm speaking to you right now from the Capitol, and I apologize for being late tonight, but we had votes that interrupted our meeting. But I've cast my last vote for the evening, so I'm good at this point. But we are here really trying to do two things. One is pass a must-pass bill to keep the government operating, but the second is to make sure that we get a relief bill done before before we adjourn for the year. It just can't wait until a new administration is inaugurated in late January, because there are going to be a lot of businesses that won't be around in late January if they don't get help now. So I'm hopeful that we can get to yes on a package that replenishes the PPP program, that puts more money in those emergency disaster economic relief loans, and that provides additional flexibility in how that money is used. When the program was originally established, it could only be used for a discrete period of weeks. A certain amount had to go to salary as opposed to fixed costs like overhead.
Right.
And the result was that a lot of businesses really couldn't meet the criteria, and they were worried about using those loans and not having them forgiven at the end of the process. So we did relax a lot of those requirements. And I want to make sure that we have sufficient flexibility in this new round of funding so that businesses can make use of it. There are also state and local resources available. So, I would encourage those that are on the call to be in touch also with their state legislators and with their city representatives. And, my office also can serve as a resource, and we can try to find information and hook businesses up with the right state and local offices. 818-450-2900 is my district office number. So people should feel free to reach out to me, even if it involves state local issues, and we'll try to direct them to the right potential funding sources.
Thank you. Thank you for, giving us some insight into that. And I'm just curious, is there a date that we can, will it be soon that we get an answer that we'll know if the funds will be replenished? And also, what will it be like? Will it be a first come, first serve, or lottery? Or do you have any of these answers that you could maybe share with us?
Yes, thank you. I think we will know within the next 7 to 10 days whether we get a package done in the lame duck session. If we don't get it done in the next 10 days, then it will likely get kicked into January and probably have to wait for the new administration. The reality is, whatever we do right now is not going to be enough. We in the HEROES Act provided for about 2 to 3 trillion in additional resources for help for businesses and individuals. We cut that down substantially in a second package, but couldn't get that through the Senate. And now there's a bipartisan proposal that's less, that's in the $900 billion realm, but nonetheless provides important help for businesses and individuals and renters and small, as well as cities and state governments, so they don't have to lay people off, firefighters, police officers, healthcare workers, teachers, and the like. But whatever we get done, if it's in that size, and I've come around to the view that something smaller sooner is better than something larger later, we will have to come back to it in the new year, because while the vaccines are enormously promising and look to be very effective, it's going to take time to vaccinate the whole country. And businesses are going to need help until that gets done. So if we're successful in the next week or 10 days in replenishing these funds, I think those funds will go out to SBA very quickly. And then it will be much like the process before, except there will, I hope, be set-asides for the smallest of businesses, so that you don't have large small businesses and franchises gobbling up all the resources. And I also would encourage people on the call that when you apply, and a lot of people had difficulty who were small business customers of big banks, if you're not getting a response from your big bank, then try a smaller lending institution. Many small businesses had better response rates from the smaller community-based institutions. And you can apply through more than one financial institution. You may only be able to get one loan, but you can try through multiple sources. And the banks, they do prioritize their applications. I wish I could say that they didn't, but that's the experience that we saw in the first round. Right. Frankly, one approach that have been pushing for is to have the federal government simply guarantee a certain percentage of payroll and paycheck until we get through this. That to me would be more equitable. It wouldn't let the banks decide who their favorite customers were. But right. But I haven't prevailed with that argument yet. But I'm going to keep trying.
Well, thank you. And I agree with the pointer you gave about going with maybe a smaller bank. I know that when the first round opened up before it was depleted, that was a problem a lot of our small businesses encountered. But some of our local members, smaller banks, they were able to help them out. So that is a great route to go if this does get approved. And now I want to give the floor to Johnny Brookbank, who I know had a few questions. Johnny, would you like to introduce
coming out and joining us. We really appreciate you taking some time. I live in La Crescenta and was recently elected to the CV Town Council, which I'm very excited about. And, I think one of the things I'm learning really quickly is that our local population of La Crescenta is about 20,000 people. And we only have maybe 450 who come out to vote in our local election, less than 3%. It feels like the hardest thing in politics is just to get people to care. Do you have any advice for, the local level, like how we could better engage our community? It is power in numbers. Social media has opened up a lot, Instagram. I don't know how you kind of got started, but do you have any advice for, the local government?
Yeah, well, Johnny, it's nice to see you by Zoom, and that's an awfully good-looking guitar you have in the background there. Um, First of all, I appreciate the work that you all do on the town council. It's enormously important. It's very difficult because the decisions that you make have a direct impact on people's lives, quite literally where they live. But you're right, a lot of those town council elections in particular have very, very low turnout. And I think the challenge is, really for all of us at every level of government, is to demonstrate the relevance of government in their lives. How government can be a vehicle for good and positive change, but also it can be a hindrance. And how important it is to have an active citizenry engaged. And so, in my experience, and this is very difficult, I know, to do during a pandemic, but being accessible, being able to look your constituents in the eye, knock on their door, greet them where they live and on the main street and in their businesses, and understand exactly the challenges they're facing is the key to good representation at every level. And we just have to find, as long as the pandemic goes on, new and innovative ways to do it. Zoom isn't bad. It ain't the same as being there, but it does allow people to be involved who normally may not have the chance because they work all day or they work evenings, and coming to a town hall is really hard to do, and this makes it accessible. One thing that I love to do, which I think is a great way to reach out and communicate to people, is I do a lot of telephone town halls where people can call in. It's essentially like a conference call with your constituents, and they can do it, at their table. They can listen in during their dinner if they're inclined to, and I find it really a great way to get feedback from the community about the issues that they're concerned about, and some great ideas on things for me to work on. So congratulations on your position. Let me know how I can help in your work. And I think the key, really, as I mentioned, is demonstrating to those you represent, those I represent, why government is relevant in their lives, and that we have a genuine interest in trying to be of service. It's ultimately all about service.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. You are an inspiration. Keep crawling up that ladder. Thank you for taking some time to answer some of those questions. I guess one other thing is, do you have any advice for, I'm not extremely familiar with your history, but do you have any advice as far as, starting out in our local scenario? Do you have any advice for me? I guess, what could be a next step? How did you kind of get your to get your momentum to start climbing?
There's really no sort of set path in terms of public service. I think you're getting involved in community at the grassroots level is really the best way to get to know the needs of your constituents and what issues are most important to them. My colleagues in Congress come from an incredible variety of backgrounds. Some, like yourself, started out in local government. Some were successful business people. Others, you know, I have a couple of colleagues who were practicing physicians. I've got colleagues who were successful realtors, and they knew everyone in their district because they'd sold them all a home, it seemed like. So the kind of career routes are highly varied. The one common denominator that I have found among most of my colleagues is whatever they were doing before they got to Congress, they were generally pretty good at, and they'd established a good reputation in their community, and they'd had a lot of interaction with their constituents through whatever work they were doing. I guess my advice would be to, you know, follow your passion. So if there are particular issues that you're most interested in, you know, whether it's business issues or it's the environment or it's gun safety or whatever the issues may be, if you're more interested in them, you'll devote yourself more completely to them. You'll be able to make a bigger contribution to them, and that will lead to its own rewards in terms of opening doors. So that would, I guess, be my advice.
Excellent. I appreciate that. I'm coming for your job.
Okay, sounds good.
Great advice. I think many students who are interested in a possible political career will appreciate that. Thank you for sharing that. And maybe on a lighter note, Congressman, how are you familiar with Montrose? How did you first, you know, get acquainted with us? I'm just curious.
Oh, well, you know, I've been acquainted with Montrose for, you know, I hate to date myself now, but over a quarter of a century. And what I love about Montrose is that it feels frankly a lot like my hometown of Burbank, which is you feel like you're a Midwestern town plunked in the middle of LA.
Yes.
It's a very small town feel. It's a very hometown feel where you run into people, you know, walking down the street. There are great restaurants and businesses, a lot of, you know, very unique and innovative businesses. And you know, just a real sense of community. We were talking at the outset about the Christmas parade. And I love the fact that parade, people are really close to you, quite literally. You know, when you're riding in that parade, the folks are just a few feet away. It's very intimate, like the town itself. And so I love being there. I love patronizing the businesses there. I miss it at the moment. Can't wait until this awful pandemic is over. But it's a jewel of a community. It really is.
Yes, it very much does give me a similar feel to Burbank, and I love how close it is to everything. But like you said, it almost has this Western feel to it. It's super homey, and I'm raising my children here, and I was raised here, and I hope that it continues on. It's, to me, the perfect place. So we're glad to have you.
So how old are your kids?
My son is 3 and my daughter is 1. And so,
Wow,
you know,
you've got your hands full.
I do, yes. And, you know, with schools, how the situation is going right now, it's been taken, you know, we're adjusting, working from home, and preschools. They just opened it up where he can go in person, but you know, we don't know what's going to happen. So that's how it's going. But on that note, I have someone who asked, kind of in line with that, with what 2021 might look like. Do you see 2021 as a year of getting back to normal, with more potential relief packages and the vaccine rollouts? If not, with what you're seeing in Washington, what do you see as the new normal in 2021?
Well, I hope and pray that 2021 is going to be a return to normal. And it may take a while. We may be well into the summer before it really starts to feel like normal again. But I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, the vaccine rollout goes a little quicker than expected. I just hope that people, you know, once the FDA does their final sign off, that people will get vaccinated, because it really, the success of it relies on us getting vaccinated. And the quicker we do, the quicker we recover, the quicker we protect ourselves and our families, but also that we recover our health and our economy. And so hopefully we all get vaccinated as soon as those vaccines are available. And so I look to next year as an opportunity to put the pandemic in the rearview mirror and say to ourselves, thank God we are through the worst of that. What an ordeal that was. I hope there's not another one for another 100 years. And if we're lucky, maybe never. But we will need to provide more relief to the American people before we're through with this. It's just going to take time. And even conservative economists like the current chair of the the chairman of the Fed, acknowledge that what we do now is really going to matter in terms of how quickly we come back from this economically. If we're penny wise and pound foolish right now, we're going to prolong the suffering. And so we need to make the investment in American people right now, and know that if we do, it will be an investment that will pay off. So I do think that I hope and pray we get a package done now. I hope and pray that we get a bigger package done in the beginning of the new administration. And as we emerge from the pandemic, that our economy it takes off like a rocket. So that's my hope. And I think the more we do now will determine whether it takes off like a rocket or it takes off like a slow moving tug.
Yeah, well, we're hoping for the best. Hopefully that's not the case. And I just want to let anyone know who has joined the call a little later, because we do have it on Zoom and on Facebook. I am looking at our comments and I see your questions coming in, but for those who have just joined us, please leave any questions you may have in the chat box or the comments on Facebook, and I am taking a look at those. Our next question is, how do we keep students motivated in this odd school year and encourage hope? From a school teacher.
Well, first of all, to the school teacher who asked the question, thank you for what you're doing. I can only imagine how challenging it is. We have a school teacher in our family, my sister-in-law, and her kids are grown. I don't know how many teachers who have young kids are managing to do it all right now. But what I would say, I guess, to young people, and my wife and I have a recent college graduate and a high school senior who has been doing completely online learning now for some time. I would just encourage young people by letting them know this isn't going to be permanent. We're going to get through this, and now that there are vaccines on the horizon, we can see light at the end of the tunnel. They're just going to have to kind of dig in until we get through this and make the most of their online education. If they need help, to ask for it. If they need technology, to ask for that too. There are resources available. But we're going to get through this. As a country, we'll get through it. The country has faced more difficult challenges in the past than this one. I always think too, I don't know whether this is any kind of a solace for young people. It probably resonates more with older people, but we're going to look back on this time. Kids are in school right now. They're going to be asked by their kids, what was it like during the pandemic of 2020?
Yeah.
It's like asking our grandparents about the pandemic of 1918.
Right.
And they're living through an historic time. And so I would just underscore, because a lot of them I know are deeply worried about their own health and the health of their family. And we're going to get through this, and there's better times ahead.
I
You know,
I
oh,
was
there you
muted there for a second.
are. Okay.
Yeah, I do think there are a lot of students, and I didn't know you had a recent college graduate and a high school senior, but I do think it has been hard for them, and really I think that is the best advice that can be given. It's they are part of a historical time, and I mean, if anything, that's the silver lining in all of this. They'll get to say they got through it and share their experience in it.
Young people are, they're resilient, and they're showing that resilience. My daughter, the recent college graduate, had a dream job lined up, which she lost before her first day at work. But then she found a new job, and then ultimately was rehired with the job that she had originally. So she's already been through 2 careers, and she's not even a year out of college. But
I mean,
young
that's
people are.
2020 for you.
Yes, it is.
Well, congratulations to her, though. I'm glad to hear that they did end up hiring her again.
Thank you. We're thrilled.
Great. So we are, nearing the end of our Q&A here, unfortunately, but I do have just a few more questions that came in. As we reach, or I'm sorry, when will the vaccine become available to the public? And I'm hearing so much surrounding it. Is it true that elderly folks and first responders will have priority?
Yes, I think first responders will have the highest priority, elderly and perhaps those that are in skilled nursing facilities will also be a very high priority since they're the most threatened by the virus. In terms of how soon it will be available, what the military logistics who have been charged with trying to help with this have said is that the moment they get the green light from the regulatory authority, which should happen within the next week or so, at least with one of the vaccines, they're prepared to ship millions of doses out immediately. I mean, within 24 hours. So I think we can expect that, within the month, we're going to have vaccines going out to first responders, which will be, a godsend because our hospitals and our ICUs right now are just to capacity, and giving our healthcare providers the confidence of knowing that they're much less likely to get sick with the virus will be really important in the hard couple months that are ahead of us. And we are going to face a really brutal winter, I'm afraid to say. In terms of how soon the vaccines will be available to the broader public, I think the estimates are that in the spring, probably we're talking about 2 or 3 months, they'll start to be available to the broader public. And the hope is that by summer we have a big part of the country vaccinated. So I would say that for most people that are not in the highest need categories, that we're probably talking about somewhere between March and June that people will be able to have ready access to a vaccine.
Okay, well, hopefully that will help the situation, especially for small businesses. Everything opening up again, and our fingers are crossed that it is as soon as spring or summer. And just one last question about small businesses. Businesses who just opened their doors in 2020, unfortunately for them, they couldn't have foreseen the situation. And now they don't qualify for most, if not all, of the relief that has been offered to other longer standing businesses. In your opinion, what are these families, some of which who put everything on the line to open their dream business up, only to have to shortly thereafter shut down because of this pandemic, supposed to do? Can you review maybe some of the options that they have?
Yeah, well, thank you for the question. And, to me, this highlights, why the approach that I've been urging for the last 6 months would be a better way to handle this, and that is by having the federal government backstop payroll and paychecks. So it wouldn't matter how new your business was or how old it was. It wouldn't matter whether you were considered a small business or a medium-sized business. It wouldn't mean that the banks could favor more, this customer versus that customer. But that doesn't look like it's going to prevail. And so we will replenish the programs that we have. I think that new businesses, and please reach out to my office because I'm not completely sure, but I think that new businesses could also qualify for the Emergency Disaster Economic Relief Program, even if they may not qualify for the PPP program. But there also may be state and local resources that are available that don't have the same constraints. So I think that some of the LA and California programs don't require that you have a track record in terms of how long your business has been functioning. But of course, those resources are even more limited than what's being offered at the federal level. Don't hesitate to reach out to my office, 818-450-2900. Let us see what your circumstances are and help you interact with the SBA. There are also counselors at the SBA who can answer a lot of these questions and say, you do qualify for this program, you don't qualify for this one, but there is this other program that you should try to access. And you may also qualify for unemployment compensation as well. That may be another way of helping you or your employees. So we're happy to try to explore these things depending on your particular business's circumstances. But yes, there are holes in what we have done so far. And one of those holes, at least at the federal level, has been with respect to very new businesses. And one final word on that, whether you have a new business or a longstanding business. I recognize how many millions of Americans have put their everything into that business. It was their dream. They took their nest egg, they put another mortgage on their home in order to get this started. And then the pandemic hit. And I want to do everything I can to help. And the federal government should do everything it can to help. And it's part of the reason why I think that we need to go big in our relief efforts. If we can help you get that business open again or keep it open, it's good for everybody. It's good for everybody. It's much better than folks having to rely on unemployment compensation. So that ought to be our goal. And, I'm happy through my office to help any way I can in directing you to whatever resources are available.
Thank you. And I will go ahead and once we end this and I repost the video, I will provide that number for everyone. And of course, if you have any questions, you can reach out to us as well. And we can either get you in touch with his office or with any resources we have as well. And so just lastly, before we end our Q&A today, and I think you've kind of touched on it, but if could you just give us some insight into what direction your focus and efforts will go towards in 2021?
First and foremost, it will be making sure we put an end to the pandemic. So getting the vaccines out as soon as possible, continuing to frankly make the case as often as I can through every medium that I can to wear a mask. For those that are asking about a vaccine right now, you have something as effective as a vaccine, and it's on your table. It's a mask. The head of the CDC has said repeatedly that wearing a mask is as effective as a vaccine. So we don't have to wait till we get that shot in the arm. There's something we can do right now. So in the new year, I want to make sure we roll out those vaccines ASAP. I want to make sure that we continue to encourage people to wear a mask, maintain social distance, and I want to make sure that my constituents get the economic help they need to survive until we're through this. Those are my top priorities. It's also a very high priority for me that we help one particularly vulnerable population, and that is our neighbors who are homeless right now. It was an epidemic before the pandemic. That is, there was an epidemic of homelessness, and that epidemic goes on, made worse by the pandemic. And so, doing everything I can at the federal level to help our state and local efforts to deal with homelessness, to help families put a roof over their heads. That is also a very high priority of mine.
You can put it in there. That's fine.
Looks like someone might have unmuted themselves for a second. Well, thank you, Congressman Adam Schiff. It's been a pleasure having you on today. And normally we end this webinar specifically with a fun speed round of questions. Do you think you would mind partaking in this? It's just a few questions and you just answer the first thing that comes to your mind.
Sure.
Okay. What is the last song you listened to?
Billy Joel, Italian Restaurant.
Okay. And what is the last book you read?
Last book I read was Dead Wake, about the sinking of Lusitania, but I have to say I'm reading The Splendid and the Vile right now, about Churchill, which I'm enjoying even more. So that's my recommendation.
Wow. Have you seen The Crown? That's not part of the speed round, but do you watch The Crown?
I watched the first couple episodes of The Crown, and then I have to confess I lost interest. But it's gotten such good reviews that I might have to give it another try.
Yes, but I mean, I'm sure you also have so much on your plate right now too, but it is a very good show. Okay, so what's been your quarantine hobby if you've had one?
I would say probably hiking has been my hobby. The one kind of safe way I can get out and get some exercise. So I've probably done more hiking during the pandemic than I have for many years. So I would say probably that.
That's great. What a great way to collect your thoughts, especially during
Yes.
this madness.
Well, I love going out and up into the Verdugos, and it's so peaceful there. I usually go out on my own, and I have to try to keep an eye out for P22 or one of his friends, because P22 is usually in Griffith Park, but I'm always alert for any movement in the brush to one of his pals.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that. Do you have a favorite holiday?
I would say Thanksgiving. I also love Halloween, frankly. I just love seeing the kids all dressed up, and but it wasn't much of a Halloween this year.
Right.
So I would say Thanksgiving. Just a wonderful time to spend with family, and that wasn't possible for everybody this year. My father is 92, and I would normally have Thanksgiving with him, but I wasn't able to see my father, and haven't seen my dad all year, not since February or late January. So, but I would rather make sure he's safe.
I'm sorry to hear so, but yeah, unfortunately, it's been the case for so many of us. That's just what we have to do. And what is a quote you live by?
I think I had the question earlier about sort of career path in politics. I got some very good advice when I was first elected to office in the state legislature from a friend of mine who had been a prosecutor with me in the U.S. Attorney's Office. And he said, never walk past an old friend to greet a new friend. It's a great political lesson, but it's also a great lesson about life.
Right.
Not to forget those that have been with you for a long time, your long friends who knew you before you made anything of yourself. And so I think that's some very good advice.
I've never heard that one before. That's very interesting. Thank you for sharing that. And lastly, if you could finish this sentence, when I think of Montrose, blank comes to mind.
Well, when I think of Montrose, good food comes to mind.
Yeah.
Wonderful restaurants come to mind. And so I'm starting to get hungry right now.
Yes, I mean, I agree. I'm ready to go have a early dinner. And while the restaurants may be closed, you can still go for takeout. Some of them are delivering or doing curbside pickups. So please continue to support the restaurants. The food is delicious in Montrose. There's a big variety of all cuisines. And well, thank you so much, Congressman Adam Schiff, for joining us today, our small town of Montrose, and coming here to answer all of our questions. And despite our small technical difficulties, we appreciate you joining us, and we hope to get some good news soon about everything that's been in limbo, it seems, and this PPE, replenishing the funds. We hope it can move forward because our small businesses really do need the help.
Well, great spending some time with you. My best to everyone, and stay healthy and stay safe, everyone.
Thank you so much. And thank you to our member who sponsored our event, Stamina Wellness. Thank you to you and for everyone who has been supporting local small businesses at this time. Have a good one, everybody.
Thank you.